10 or 20 years until we would get in this direction, and simply a slow growth and kind of short work time strategy. I mean, we see this already in Greece and Spain. Without other measures, I mean, this would lead to undesired results. So Marshall Plan is the only way, and I think you should communicate it a bit more sensible, if I may, just to mention that it is actually not only cyclical, it is a structural measure, because you really want to change the economy, and you want to change it in a very similar sense as Coote has lined it out. Although it sounds a bit, to be honest, also like financial innovation and things. I mean, you mentioned the future fund, a New Deal bond, and things like this, which people would make people a bit skeptic. But I mean, these are just communication challenges, and of course, someone would like to follow your calculations. This is also something important. But I think the general strength is clear in a situation where a complete change away from austerity policy seems, at least in the short term, impossible, and not even support of the economy from the rich economies seems at reach. Yeah? I mean, even from my country, the only signals I see is more austerity and not less. Yeah? So I think this really could offer a kind of way through this mess. Yeah? In this sense, I would really like to contribute to spread this idea more around. Also, last remark, I think European employers, you have been very skeptical about German employers. I think European employers are much more open to your ideas, as I've seen that the Economic and Social Committee, for example, has adopted a resolution which sounds very similar to yours, also with a very big plan of 2% investment per year, which is basically of 2% of GDP per year, which is basically what we do. So it's not peanuts, yeah, because we have so many plans which only are peanuts. I mean, this 6 billion for youth unemployment over the next 7 years. This is all ridiculous in a sense. Yeah? So this is the first time that you hear really numbers which would be needed to counter a bit, at least, this austerity. So that's my.
Thank you, Andreas. Joe?
So I will postpone it a little bit, because it should also maybe have then a kind of concluding.
Okay, you reserve it for your concluding remarks. Okay, then the gentleman there, the lady there. Okay, okay, I now see 3 questions. We take these 3 types of questions together, and then you have all the possibility to give a final remarks.
Okay, Claus Larsen Jensen, FIC Denmark. I think it's a comment from my side that I want you to react to it, because I'm very much on the line of you need to think big, and I think some of the ideas in the so-called Marshall Plan, I don't know whether it should be called so, because you could maybe find a better name, but that's not my point at the moment. I think right now the problem for Europe in acting is that we act too slow. It takes too long time to decide. When we get the money for it, we are too bureaucratic because we are afraid of people are misusing the money. The control systems are a help, and we are still thinking too much in the direction of the implementation of all projects on national level. I'll just ask you, couldn't we think much more pan-European in the direction of saying, okay, we want to develop a new transport system in Europe, trans-European high-speed trains, not national railway companies doing it. I'm not talking about the local traffic or national traffic internally, but the crisscrossing traffic. make one or two, like go west, go east in the United States, building the railways, thinking in the same direction when you have to have high-speed internet connections in Europe. If we want to develop new types of alternative energies, then let's spend a hell of a lot of money in windmill parks, solar energy, whatever it can be. Because I think if we are not doing this, we will be too slow also in the competition to other actors, China, other countries, and we talk about it, but we don't do it. So my question to you is, could you try to do all you can in Germany, in DTB, trying to push this kind of development? Because I think it's a much better way of using the money than the way we're doing it right now in the budget of the European Union.
Actually, yes, you.
Okay, Verena Fabres, Volkshilfe, Austria. I wanted to thank Anna Coote for highlighting the gender dimension of inequality. And if Richard Wilkinson is right, and a society, more equal society is better for everybody, for the rich, not only for the poor, but also for the rich, it also should be true that a society where there's more equality between men and women is better for women and also for men. And I consider the reduction of working hours as a really important measure and would be interested what the other speakers on the panel think about it.
Okay, and the last question, the gentleman in the second row from behind.
Yes, thank you. It was indeed very refreshing this afternoon to hear the different contributions, especially from Heiner Flassbeck. Thank you very much. Now, in your elaborations, you indeed pointed out that moving away from a small open economy to a big closed economy, that has consequences, and why some countries in Europe might maybe too far in their question of their increases of their salaries over time. Germany definitely went too low. And I think, that message has been actually passed to Germany over the last years many times. But you're right, and you talked about the whole cultural feeling in Germany that one has historically always said it has to be very low inflation rate. So therefore, the unions have also asked always for very low wages, and so therefore that they can't just that you say it is just the politicians. I do think that the DGB and also different unions in Germany over time have played quite a role, and you have to admit some responsibilities. Lately you have gone further, you're right, but when you go back into the beginning of the 2000s and during that decade, that the demands as regards wage increases and the forcefulness of setting it through, you have not really followed that up consequently as well. So I think there's a certain responsibility of the whole country, but it is linked to the tradition of this country that goes way quite back. Now, as this responsibility is there, I think you have to point out that beside increasing wages, if you don't do it, in other words, if you don't eat the cake yourself, you have to be willing to give that cake away. What does it mean? You then have to take the responsibility to pay and make transfers. And so therefore, the whole debate, as in Germany now, that we are paying for the rest, yes, we do, because we have done that kind of mistake in the past. So as we have not said A, we do have to say B, and therefore the transfers have to be made. And I think that has to be pointed out. Second point, it has to be pointed out that I think a monetary union cannot work just in itself. You need a fiscal and a political union as well. So therefore, if you work on the monetary union, and that people have pointed out at the end of the 90s already in a lot of articles, but we don't have political and a fiscal union. So therefore, working on the budget and working on fundamental structural economic problems like Spain has. We knew about the bubble of the infrastructure sector. Those things have not been addressed, and if they are not addressed very quickly in the short term, then we do face a problem. So therefore, the next demand must be, we have to work on a political and a fiscal unit. Last point, new countries are coming in, and shouldn't be there also a certain kind of warning that don't take too many new countries into the Eurozone because of the stability in their own interest, that this whole boat may not succeed, and therefore the risk for those kinds of small countries is enormous. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now you have the possibility for closing remarks. Maybe the other way around than before, so I'll start now with Conny Reuter.
Well, I think it would be interesting one day to have a debate on Germany and Europe, but it's not tonight. I think the most important is indeed the question of the debate on economics. I would always say, let's pay a little bit attention. There are many economists around Europe and around the world who give a lot of interpretation. The question is not only to listen and to exchange, but it's also to see with what do we face, what are the concepts, and in this sense I found it very enriching to hear the first two contributions on this roundtable here. When it comes to the economic and monetary union, I think you made exactly the mistake we don't want to see anymore. We speak on political and fiscal union, and where's the social? Sorry. Professor Galbraith was saying it, and I think that is important. And you coming from the US, you teach us that we should add fourth element. And the social cohesion, the social policies is not only a luxury that you have when you are rich, because we are building in times of poverty in Europe, in particular in the Nordic countries, a welfare system which was an investment system. And therefore the political battle on the European level, besides the question of the economic choices, is the question where is this place and the space for the social. And in this sense, I think that is really, this is important. We need to put a lot of money on the table, and I think the proposal from DGB is really interesting and worth to consider that it's not only peanuts investment, but please be careful. If you would get at least this small peanuts amount of money to combat youth unemployment, that would be for those who are unemployed, that would be something concrete, sorry to say, 56% young unemployed in Spain. What do we tell them? We first have to change the economy. No, we must put money now, today, tomorrow morning, put it on the table and invest in progress. And last thing, which I did not mention, not only to speak on the social side, there is this really that tremendous, disastrous effect of lack of democratic legitimacy. Who tells the Troika people in Greece, for example, what to do? Who controls them? They even never come to the European Parliament to report back and have an exchange and be controlled by those who have legitimacy. So that is really a problem in Europe, that the decisions are taken to sell the public beaches, to sell water distributions. This is not an economic necessity. This is not something which is sought by the Commissioner of Employment and Social Affairs. This is even hopefully not sought by Olli Rehn or somebody else. This is something which is taken in the logic which is not our logic, and I think which is not the logic of the economists sitting here on this podium together with me. So I think putting a focus on the social, have a debate on the right economic choices, and consider that indeed there is emergency, because we can have an alliance of the, let's say, elites. I don't believe in it. They will only react if they see an economic interest and if there's pressure. But we see the people on the lower level, on the lower scale, they turn away from democracy, look to Greece, look to France and other countries, and this is why we say there is not yet fire in the house, but there is danger in the house.
Thank you. Dierk?
Just a few words regarding the responsibility of German trade unions towards wage moderation. You're right, there were talks at the end of the 90s in the so-called Bündnis für Arbeit, where some union leaders were able to organize so-called trade-off between wage moderation and employment. But the talks were not finished, they were stopped, and afterwards, 2003, Gerhard Schröder implemented the Agenda 2010. That was the result of the fact that the talks with the unions were not successful. So the the Bündnis für Arbeit was not a successful project from a political point of view. And I think if we talk about the reasons of the terrible wage development in Germany in the last decade, we have to see that we had on the one side the so-called labor market reforms, the political willingness to build a huge low-wage sector, which was successful. We've got the second biggest low-wage sector behind the US. And the second point we have to see is the fact that the employers stepped away from collective bargaining. The coverage rate of collective bargaining in Germany went down from above 70% to something like 50%. So only every second worker in Germany is covered by collective bargaining. So the wages we negotiate are only the wages for half of the workforce. Yeah, and so the how should I put it? The capability of unions to determine the general wage development changed in the last decade. German unions are not able to steer the general wage development in their country. That's a fact. Yeah? That's why the unions are campaigning for minimum wage, that's why the unions are campaigning for generalization of collective bargaining and so on. And if you look, for example, at the sectors where unions are still able to negotiate, for example, the metal sector, the automobile industry, machine building industries. And if you analyze the wage development in this sector, or take the pharmaceutical industries, the wage development in these sectors was in line with inflation and productivity. So if this would have been the general wage development, the wage development of these sectors, there would have been no wage moderation in my country. Yeah? And we wouldn't have these macroeconomic problems within the Eurozone. But this wasn't the case. Yeah? This is only the wage development of the automobile industry, the machinery building industry, of the pharmaceutical industry, and the low wage sector dragged the general wage development down. Yeah? That's the situation. So from my point of view, you can't blame the unions, yeah, for the moderate wage development in my country. It's due to politics, and it's due to the decision from the employer side to step out of collective bargaining. That's it. Yeah. And a few words regarding the question of labeling. Yeah. The name Marshall Plan is just a proposal. Yeah. It's got a different meaning in Germany compared to Greece, compared to Italy. So call it investment program and development program. Yeah. Doesn't matter. Yeah, it was just a proposal. And the same is true for the whole question of the labeling of financiation. Yeah? New Deal bonds, European Future Fund. The idea, yeah, is that we have incredible financial wealth in Europe. And you have insurance companies, you have pension funds that are searching for secure investment opportunities, and they got a problem to find these secure investment opportunities in a situation where uncertainty is everywhere. Yeah? And the proposal is to organize such a secure investment opportunity by the European Investment Fund. But the labeling is question of taste. Yeah. So, and you mentioned the trans-European projects. They are part of our proposal. Yeah. We proposed the idea of Delors invest in trans-European railway network, yeah, to invest in trans-European system of renewable energies, high-speed internet, and so on. Yeah, all these projects are trans-European projects. Yeah.
Yes, I want to return to the question of growth, and I'm glad that you raised this. I think it matters a great deal whether we think that anything that is being proposed to save Europe or revive the economies in Europe is about returning to growth, or whether it's about something else. And I don't think we've discussed that, and I think it's an unresolved dilemma. I mean, if you look at the point that I was making, is that growth, as we know it in the rich world, is incompatible with what we need to do in order to save the planet, to put it simply. And the science says that you can't have continuing growth in the rich world unless you just let the rest of the world do nothing to catch up at all with our levels of quality of life and standard of living. So if you want some global equity, you've got to live without growth in the rich world, and this is a very difficult thing to face up to. The science says it can't be done, but politics, of course, are always telling us you can't possibly mention that. And so we talk about things like green growth, which don't actually mean a great deal, or we wait for some sort of technological fix that will get us out of the whole crisis, and that can't really be done either. So what we have to do with the Marshall Plan, with anything, is to recognise that actually recession is very bad for society. In a way, in a superficial way, it's quite good for ecological footprints around the place. What we have to do, if we're going to reinvent the European project, the European economy, is to reinvent it in a way that is about managing an economy that isn't growing. And that takes me to, that's why we need, as we're sort of having two parallel discussions here, or rather one big discussion, and then every now and again a little bit of another discussion about society. But we talk about what can we do with the European economy, let's build railways. I think we need to keep bringing the discussion back to everyday human life and human resources, and also to think more, if we are going to live with an economy that isn't growing and manage it in a way that is good for social justice and well-being, we need to think more about what we in the New Economics Foundation call the core economy, the uncommodified economy, all the assets and relationships that we have in our everyday lives that are hugely valuable, and that we could either be let to weaken and diminish, or it could flourish or grow, this core economy, depending on the policies that we adopt. And in a constructive partnership with the public sector across Europe and in individual countries, this core economy can do much more through local NGOs, as well as in families and in neighbourhoods and communities, to sustain and improve everyday life. And sustaining and improving everyday life has to be part of the project of working out what we're going to do with the economy. So, and that takes me back to the point about short-time working. Short-time working isn't just about short-term management of an economy in crisis. It's about a long-term perspective on how we want to live in the future. And if we do want to live in a way that is environmentally sustainable and socially just, thinking about how we distribute time is absolutely vital, in my view. And I mean, there are things we can do as part of the Marshall Plan, for example. All new labour market entrants, all young people coming into the labour market for the first time, bring them in on a 4-day week. And then they stay on a 4-day week. The Netherlands did this for a while, in the late 80s. And so eventually you change the norm. Meanwhile, for the people who are older, who are going towards retirement, many of you may know that this sort of terrible cut-off you can get to full-time working and sudden retirement is very bad for you. You don't continue to be productive and so on. So suppose from the age of 55 to the age of 75, each year you reduce your working week by 1 hour. And then gradually those two policies would meet up and we'd have a new norm. We'd have more jobs for everyone, we'd live our lives differently, we'd manage the economy differently. I've probably gone on too long. Thank you.
Thank you. Heiner Flassbeck.
Yeah, let me first say, Anna, what you said is wonderful, but the first thing you have to do, you have to invent a new species of politicians. And second, you have to make sure that they are elected. Otherwise, it doesn't work. Yeah, we're not able to stop the recession in the European economy, and then to say from the left, from a progressive point of view, oh, we are happy that we have no growth. We have 25% people unemployed. We are totally unable to find a very simple mechanism to stop this recession from ongoing, and then we're talking about no growth and with social equilibrium over the next 100 years, and that we're going to implement tomorrow. It's naive. Sorry, it's extremely naive.
It's not.
And I have to tell you something. No, let me say another thing. You should come to Germany to study work time reduction. We have experience of 20 years of work time reduction. It's not so simple. Please, I invite everyone to hold another meeting, and I come to tell you about the economics of work time reduction. It's not so simple. It's not simple at all. It's not simple at all to implement it year by year, just work time reduction, and then the problems are solved. They're not solved. You can say it like that, but there's no mechanism that you could describe that makes it so simple that we don't have big problems with work time reduction, because work time reduction is also wage cuts. It's nothing else but a different kind of cutting wages, and you have to find it, you have to put it in an economy with growing demand. That was the only way we could do it in the past, with growing demand, but not with falling demand. If you cut the work time in an economy where demand is anyway falling, it will aggravate the problems and not solve anything.
Can I just reply to that? I think it's really condescending.
We have 100 years of discussion about this.
Well,
please come to Germany and we show it to you.
Why don't you come to England and we might have a chat with you?
Yeah, okay.
We'll go to France.
My second point, what the Danish colleague said, is very important. You see, but again, we have to win the intellectual debate. We have to overcome debt phobia that is everywhere around. Government debt phobia has to be killed first before we can do all these wonderful things. We have to explain that debt is related to savings, that debt is not a bad thing, but that it's a good thing, it's necessary. We have to ask the question that I was not able to do in my statement, but normally I would do it. Who is going to be indebted, but not is there debt at all? It's ridiculous to talk about cutting debt on the government side as we do in Germany, where at the same time we have net savings in the company sector and net savings in the household sector. It's absurd. It's an absurd economic model. It has nothing to do with market economy anymore. But we're not able to communicate that. In such a world, to communicate, to say, just let's do it, it doesn't work. We have to win the intellectual debate, and we have to find majorities for that. Otherwise, or we find by chance personalities like Theodore Roosevelt. I don't know. But it's nothing systematic in that. It's just hope. My third point, you asked the question about the unions. I don't want to comment too much on unions. I have a bit different opinion than what Dierk said, but that's really not important. It's really not important. Important is that the red-green government, desperately searching for an economic policy concept that was fitting into the mainstream. That was the condition. It had to fit into the mainstream thinking, into mainstream neoclassical economics, did whatever they could to put pressure on the unions. A red-green government. I was part of that government in the first 6 months, you know that, and I saw there was no plan, no idea, no strategy, no nothing. And that is still true for most of the social democrats. Oh, I should not say that now, Mr. Swoboda is coming. But nevertheless, I'm saying it. I'm well known for my frankness, so I can say that. So there is no concept yet on the opposition side, it was said, and there's no concept on the green side for a new kind of economic policy. So how